All right, I just thought it would be fun to go over my thoughts on some of the games that I played in the Marchand Open, which is a over-the-board classical time control, 2 hours on each side plus 5 second delay for each player tournament. There were 5 rounds, and this is my first round game. I thought this game was really interesting, especially because it's sort of a lesson in a few different things. First of all, being ready to pounce in the opening immediately if something doesn't seem right. I feel like not even just in the sense that I don't have as many things memorized as some people do, but also in the sense that I just don't have that great of a sense of what good opening play is. At least that's what it seems like in this game. Is one of my main weaknesses, and we will see that here. I did not sort of spot when my opponent did something weird, or maybe even if I did, I didn't really know how to respond to that in the most accurate and aggressive way. But anyway, I mean, there really is no excuse. This is an opening I play all the time. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and we go for this two knights defense. Online, maybe I'll play the fried liver or something, or the knight attack, but I'm not going to play that over the board. We just go in with a d3. Just going to turn this into like a very normal Italian game. And now opponent goes bishop to c5. And here I normally go c3. Now, for some reason, I was thinking, just like the thought flashed across my mind during the game that like my opponent seemed somehow in the way that he was presenting himself to be like a little bit of an unorthodox player. And I was kind of worried, like, if he went c3, would he try to go for some weird, like, bishop sacrifice? Obviously, that's nothing to be worried about at all. Like, I could definitely handle it, but it was more so I was thinking, like, I want my first game to be more interesting and instructive and not allow some, like, random, terrible piece sacrifice. So I was like, okay, let me just castle so that thought doesn't even cross my opponent's mind. Again, I have no idea why I was thinking that. Like, c3, bishop takes f7 is not a thing. In the Lichess database, it's also not there. Yeah, no one plays that move because it's terrible. But, I just figured my opponent might have that thought cross his mind, and I just wanted to completely eliminate that possibility right off the bat. For no reason. Again, like, I'm, like a 1600. Like, that's not really going to be happening in my games, especially in the classical time control. But we castle. Doesn't matter. I can do c3 later. That's fine. Opponent plays h6, that's fine, c3, and now a6. And this is sort of the problem, is that, like, I sort of did get the sense that my opponent going for this little baby crab type position was not the best in the opening. Like, why are you playing h6, a6 on move 5 and 6? But it somehow just did not occur to me that I would already be, like, borderline winning, or at least have, like, a huge advantage. And, like, looking at this position after the fact, it's very obvious that, d4 just has to be played, right? Like, if takes, I don't know where the bishop's going. What do we go to, like, back to a7 or something? Then, yeah, I mean, this is just completely dominating. I have, like, where's my opponent? My opponent's knight has to go, to, like, back to g8? And so, like, it's sort of a move order thing, because d4 you're trying to play for basically the whole game in this setup. But the idea is that, like, it's extremely overpowering if the opponent has not yet played d6, right? So normally here, black should play d6. Because, of course, in the same type of situation, like, this move is just not as good, right? Yeah. I don't know. Still seems like totally playable, obviously. Lots of games in this position, but it isn't as completely dominant as the version I just showed. Anyway, that was sort of interesting. But instead, I just thought it would be kind of fun to open up my F file, so I played this. Okay, this is fine also. But missing an opportunity, obviously, to play d4. Again, my opponent allows me to play d4 by playing, again, what I sort of thought was a weird move. Queen e7 seems a little bit counterintuitive, like kind of developing strangely. Could have played d4 again here, basically the same stuff. But I don't. I drop my bishop back to b3, which I think, again, is only a mistake because I was missing the idea of d4. The whole point is that, I want my bishop to not have to be traded off if my opponent plays knight f5, right? Because no matter where I go here, I'm going to get, I'm going to have to trade it off. So At any rate, that's why we played bishop b3 to meet if this were to happen with bishop c2, which would be cool. Okay, and then my opponent finally plays d6, so now d4 is not as like totally winning as it would be otherwise, and I just keep developing. I had briefly considered like it might be fun to double the pawns by just capturing right here. And the reason I thought this was not good, and I actually think this is actually not good, is because now I'll never get to play d4, right? This is like kind of a crazy clamp, and like these double pawns are not bad at all. You know, it's important to not use these like strategic rules of thumb as like absolute truths. You know, because double pawns are often very good, right? Especially like these seem great. So okay, I did not do that. I then played here. Oh, yes, I forgot. One thing that I was thinking was that it would be cool maybe to go here, here, and then if I had two free moves, I would go here, and then put some attackers on this pawn. But it was very slow if I hadn't even developed my knight at all yet when I took on c5, so I decided to develop my knight first, leaving me the option to maybe take on c5 eventually if I feel like that's something I want to do. Opponent decides not to allow that and just takes himself. Okay, so now I have the open f file, which I guess is what I wanted, and also this bishop that's kind of bearing down on this f7 pawn. So maybe there's something there. All right. Yeah, so now my opponent plays b5. I'm not exactly sure. I guess just expanding on the queen side. Yeah, nothing too crazy here. And I decided that it would be nice to plot my knight on this juicy square right here. And maybe even better if I could somehow get like one knight to support the other knight, so if a bishop ever captures, you know, I can capture back with that knight. But regardless, I want to get some piece onto this juicy f5 square because it's like a beautiful outpost. But in order to do that, you have to not fall prey to these sort of kind of funny basic tactics. If I were to play knight h4 immediately, I think, I haven't checked with an engine, but I think this capture just works, right? Like a pretty basic tactic here. I don't know. Like, okay, I capture back, and then I lose, I just lost a pawn. Maybe not the end of the world, but, you know, I lost a pawn. You don't want to be losing pawns. Okay, so that's why I played queen a1, and I thought that was a good move. You know, it gets the queen on maybe a slightly more useful diagonal, in case I want to attack on the king side. Yeah, so I guess this is why my opponent played b5, go bishop b7. I didn't really like this move at all. I thought this was, like, very, I don't know, not in the spirit of the position, I guess. Like, yeah, my pawns are not really, like, that weak, you know. Like, what is this bishop doing? Especially now it's not covering this square. And, okay, here I probably should have gone with my gut and just played knight h4 instantly. But I started getting just marginally concerned that if I do go knight h4, and my opponent actually, since he is not committed to castling yet, castles queenside. If I now go here, okay, where does the queen go? Maybe the queen goes here. Doesn't really matter. What have I done? Well, now I've provided sort of like a target for my opponent to win some tempi by pushing his kingside pawns and, like, you know, forcing my knight to move, right? So I don't know. Maybe I go like here or whatever. The thing is, this is good. Like, I should have gone for this because if we do decide to get into this business and I go back here, you know, like my queenside attack I think is faster than this. Takes, and then yeah, maybe even just double stacking rooks, or I don't know, going here, this. And then somehow trying to get, I don't know, my knights in or double stacking or something. Like, it seems like I'm going to be a bit faster. But I thought this was unclear, so I decided not to go for it. Instead of playing knight h4 immediately, I decided that I should just sort of nip that thought in the bud, not allow castling queenside to even be considered. So I played a4. And this is a good move also. Like, this is a good idea. Okay. And, you know, point being, I'm just starting a pawn storm, and it's a little bit awkward for my opponent. Sort of asks this pawn a question, like, what are you doing, right? My opponent plays a pretty good move here, knight a5. I like a lot. I don't really want to trade my bishop off, and I also don't want to lose sight of this pawn. So I'm back to c2. That's good. And now my opponent castles kingside. And here, yeah, my plan is just to continue as, you know, I'd come up with before. But as we're soon about to see, this is sort of ends up being a lesson in not or allowing an attack or not allowing your attack to fizzle out, because my attack very much fizzled out. The, I guess, fantasy that I had upon reaching, I don't know, upon considering knight h4, knight f5, especially since this bishop went here, was that, you know, I'd have my bishop on this square. Let's pretend this knight isn't here for a second. And, like, I go here, and what I was thinking is, like, it would be super nice for my opponent to play g6 to prevent my knight from landing on this nice outpost square, or not really an outpost, but, you know, it's a strong square, and moving, or trying to kick it out with the pawn definitely is detrimental to black's position. And if that happens, I can just capture here, right? Like, there's this sneaky little threat, which is where it's, you can't take back because of the pin. But since I threw in this little a4 idea, and now my bishop is not on the proper diagonal anymore, g6 can just be played. And maybe it's not very good, maybe it weakens the king. I had seen this idea, obviously, and I was thinking, well, you know, maybe I can try queen f2 to target this knight, and then if king goes here, you can go queen g3, right? So I guess we can look at that on the board. Here to defend the knight, and then here to threaten the win of the queen. But I thought, like, okay, well, now what if the king goes here? Like, what do I do? Maybe I try to double up with the rooks now that I've gotten the queen out of the way. Not really any idea. This is probably what I should have gone for. Okay, like rook f3. Here maybe? I don't know. Like that, whatever. It doesn't really matter what my opponent does. I'll do something like this, and this looks pretty strong. But I sort of had this idea that I wanted to get my bishop back on the diagonal it's rightfully supposed to be at, so here I played b4. And this is just slightly inaccurate because my bishop really, even though it looks like it should be better on this diagonal, doesn't really end up doing anything. And in fact, its only moment of glory in this game, which we'll see near the end, is that it just trades itself off advantageously. But okay, like maybe when it's here, it supports some sort of expansion in the center, which I should have altered my plans and not been stubbornly going for this attack that I had sort of simple-mindedly set my sights on. Okay, but now I go bishop back to b3. This isn't terrible, but I've sort of given my opponent more time to, like, consolidate. He still does have to respond to this threat of knight takes g6, which he sees, obviously. Goes king h7. And here I was thinking, okay, the only really source of my attack in this position is the open f-file, the ability to do a rook lift, and these pawns being maybe just, like, ever so slightly weak because of their advances. So I wanted to go here, which I probably should have done immediately. But I thought, you know, b takes a4. If I capture back with the rook, that slows me down a lot because I'm not going to be able to eventually get my rook in here. And if I capture back with the bishop, then also that slows me down a bit because then I have to waste a move going back to where I want to go. Which, I mean, maybe I don't. Maybe I can trade off for the knight. No idea. So instead of going rook f3 first, I just capture, and then trade rooks because I thought that my opponent maybe would not want to remove this rook from the defense, even though I guess he totally could have. I just thought it would be better to make the queen side a lot more boring so I don't have to think about what's going on over there and just focus on the attack, which I did not do very well, but that's what my intention was. Okay, we go rook f3. Idea behind rook f3 is, you know, basically just to, like, either go here or here, do something. Again, I sort of was getting a little bit frustrated that my attack did not seem to be panning out as well as it could have been panning out. And I guess, like, my thought was that if I went to h3, which I did, I would maybe have some sort of ideas of, like, sacrificing my knights on these two squares. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let's say my opponent does something random here. The first thing I was considering was this sacrifice. And the reason I was considering it is because I thought my opponent should probably respond because it's a threat on this pawn. He has to take. And then I was sitting there for a while thinking, wow, there really is no defense to just queen h4. How is this pawn to be defended? And, okay, like I was thinking like h5, but then I just go queen g5. And really, is there anything here? Like, I don't know. At the very minimum, coming in with this, there's some sort of threat going on. Again, this is probably already good enough, but like I was thinking, you know, I'm going to take here maybe. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. But the thing that I saw, and the reason I didn't go for this, is because my opponent has this funny, really good move, knight g8, which kills all my hopes and dreams, because the queen is also defended. Which, part of my reasoning behind all this is that if I went here, who knows what my opponent does? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Well, I guess it does matter, but okay, whatever. Let's say my opponent goes here, even though that's really stupid. This does work because... Oh, well, actually, this specific one wouldn't work because the knight guards. But, like, in some lines, maybe the queen is undefended. Anyway, none of this works because of a few different things. It was a bad idea all around. But at any rate, okay. I just decided to bring another piece into the attack, which I didn't think was that bad, but my pieces are a little bit poorly coordinated. I should not have gone for this. Ah, yes, okay. Yeah, so sorry. What happens in the game is my opponent plays knight d8. I guess his plan is to go here, but I thought his plan was just to push these pawns, which he ended up doing too. That was a little bit scary. Anyway, my opponent goes knight d8. I continue with my idea. And then my opponent plays the knight into e6, which I guess just adds another attack. Another defender on the king side. And at this point, my attack is almost entirely gone, but I figured I should probably get another attacker of my own into the game anyway. And now I was having even more thoughts of like these weird sacrifices on these squares. Somehow there could be something there. There never really was though, but okay. But fortunately enough, my opponent actually kind of forced me to make a really good move here, which was kind of funny. My opponent played c5, which for the first, like, oh, by the way, funny story about this game. I was down on time by like 45 minutes for the whole game. I thought forever here, like 10 minutes, and I thought this move is so good, right? Like, it's really scary. If I go for anything funny, like, for example, what was I considering? Maybe some sort of queen move. I'm not exactly sure. The whole point is that if I don't react properly, like, let's say I go here or something, my opponent just goes like this, and this is awful, right? Like, I can't allow this. I'm probably, like, lost now. This is terrible. And otherwise, even, like, I was thinking that just taking here is also pretty bad. Because now my bishop has to go here again, and it's all ugly, and, slightly a sad bishop. But fortunately enough, I had also started calculating this move. Bishop takes e6. And the reason I hadn't played it earlier is because, like, for example, on this move is... Oh, sorry. The reason that I didn't play this instantly is because I knew for sure that if queen takes, this is really bad. I can just sacrifice my knight here, which is beautiful, and then get a fork, right? Let's go through that one more time. This way does not work quite as well, because the king can just move. But, oh wait, sorry. What am I doing? No, sorry, I'm tripping. The king cannot just move. This sacrifice does not work quite as well because of takes. Oh, and sorry, yeah, takes, and there's just nothing. Surprisingly, there's just nothing, which I guess is kind of crazy. Okay, yeah, so if queen captures back, this sacrifice just works beautifully. Best the opponent probably has is just to, I don't know, maybe move the rook or something? No, sorry, that can't happen because this fork will still occur. Probably just move the king and then I win the rook, or I win the exchange. Okay, but obviously my opponent's not going to take back the queen, and I thought that taking back this way was a little bit annoying. Like, what is even going on here? Obviously, I don't really have anything anymore. But in this position, it did turn out to be working for me to take here, because I saw at minimum I can win a pawn, right? Let's go to this position. My opponent plays c5. I should have seen this much quicker, but I thought my bishop was like a prized possession. I didn't really want to lose it or trade it off. But I was forced to because of all these annoying ideas with pushing c4. So I just took, and I'm winning a pawn, right? Takes, here. So we played that all out, takes, but then my opponent doesn't take back because I guess he's worried about what I just showed. My opponent plays what ended up being the decisive blunder of the game, which is boom, knight to d8. And this opens up a route for a very beautiful sacrifice, which caught my eye instantly, but I spent a long time calculating it all out to make sure it worked. Sorry, knight to e8. Why did I say d8? The knight had gone to d8 before. Okay, I ended up calculating the sacrifice all the way out because there's lots of things to see. And the sacrifice is this. Knight takes g6. And the reason it caught my eye is obviously it has to be responded to, right? Because at best for black, like the best thing black can do is like lose an exchange, which I thought was probably good enough at this point. So I figured my opponent would just take back because the result of the attack is kind of far in the future, so it's a little bit hard to know if I'll actually, fully capitalize on the attack that happens here. But I'll show you what I had calculated. King takes g6, obviously queen g3, and first of all, there's only really one square for the king to go to if black wants to stay in the game even for a few more moves, so that was the only one I calculated. Let's just show a couple other things. If we go here, I can just give this check, which is nice because of this pin. So even though my attack was like extremely poorly coordinated and disjointed, somehow all these pieces that I brought over here and all these like funny ideas I was eyeing earlier end up panning out, finally, because of this stroke of luck that revitalized my attack at the very end of the game. Okay, obviously if we go here, this is just a disaster. Like, who knows, like, what is going on? There's probably some sort of mate here or something. Yeah, this is just terrible. Oops, no. Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil the result of the game. Let me go back to where we were. Here we are. Okay, so obviously this doesn't work. Oops. This doesn't work because of this, and then this, and then this. Like, you're just getting destroyed. Right? Okay, similarly, this doesn't work because of this. And now, wait. Hang on a second, what's happening here? What was the... Oh, no, sorry, this didn't work because of this. Yeah. And what happened in the game is just easier to accomplish because now if we go here, this happens. Yeah. For some reason, I had seen I had seen this in the game, and then here, but I guess this probably isn't anything. Okay, at any rate, yeah. The only worthwhile move to consider is here, and so that's what I spent the most time calculating in the position where I was considering the sacrifice, and I saw that it would be winning to take this pawn, and I'll show you how far I got in my calculations. Taking this pawn threatens mate on this square. So something like, I don't know, even moving the knight or something, right? That's just mate. So my opponent's only move is this. But then what I had seen was I can throw this check in, and the reason this check is so good and so interesting is because, first of all, if rook blocks, what I had calculated was I think here, and I thought that if queen takes, rook takes, because of pawn takes here, and the fact that the pieces, black pieces are also horribly disjointed, that I would be winning even though the positions like this maybe sometimes aren't winning. But I thought this would be winning because of just how bad black's pieces are. Let's see what the computer has to say about this. Yeah, this is just completely winning. Okay, good. But my opponent didn't choose to go for that. I think what I decided on was the best. Perhaps just taking here would have been good enough too. Anyway, my opponent blocks with a knight. And blocking with the knight is worse because of capturing here. Queen captures back, and the conclusion of the game is quite beautiful. Knight takes with check. Nowhere the king goes is any good. Here, 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 checkmate, and my opponent lets me gobble up all his pieces and win there. So, cool attack. I had a lot of fun. Hope you liked this video.